start the workshop. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Annika Lee, and I have the honor of being part of the Supercluster team as the Membership and Communications Coordinator. I would like to welcome you all to our second Best Practices workshop on quarterly reporting and the claims process for our COVID-19 program projects. These workshops are intended to introduce and prepare you with the tools and knowledge to support you and your project teams. As the majority of our Supercluster team is based in Vancouver, British Columbia, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering virtually on the traditional lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Before handing things over to today's presenters, Linda and Wade, our goal is to have this session be an engaging and informative session. If at any point you have a question during the presentation, we ask that you please type it into the chat box and I will be managing it, and we'll pause after each section of the presentation to address your question in queue at the designated time. As a reminder, this call will be recorded, and we ask all participants to keep their lines muted during the presentation to avoid any feedback. We will also be distributing both this recording as well as the presentation deck and additional resources following the session for you to share with your team and to refer back to. As mentioned, this workshop is intended to provide your COVID project team with the guidance, support, and tools to meet quarterly reporting compliance. So if we look at the agenda, we'll be briefly covering some cybersecurity best practices given our current environment, and then we'll move into the quarterly reporting and claims process, and of course have time for more questions at the end. So just moving on to the next slide, we really want to emphasize the importance of cybersecurity. COVID-19 has had a profound impact on our country and the world, especially in regards to life science researchers and innovators. So to lead in Canada's effort to address the pandemic, the Government of Canada at the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity has asked that all organizations involved in COVID-19 response be alert and vigilant in order to protect their knowledge and scientific know-how from potential threats. So on the next slide, we have a few recommendations on some key best practices. So for example, increasing the monitoring of network logs, reminding all employees to be alert to suspicious emails such as phishing attempts, using secure passphrases and multi-factor authentication, implementing secure teleworking practices, backing up all data, and applying firewalls and antivirus software and patch servers for all known security vulnerabilities. So we'll be sharing these best practices in the follow-up, and also plan on doing a workshop catered to cybersecurity in the fall, so keep an eye out for that. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Linda to discuss the quarterly reporting.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, as in what part of country you are. My name is Linda Shing, and I'm the program analyst at the Digital Supercluster. And some of you may know me from the project selection process from a few months back. A little bit about myself. I've been with the Supercluster for about 1.5 years now, and I'm also a lover of spicy food. So without further ado, let's get started on the quarterly report. So first, I want to start with an overview of how the COVID program is structured when your project hit the quarterly mark. How deliverables, quarters, and claims tie together. We use quarter as a timely checkpoint, not just for the Supercluster, but for the entire project team, to see if the project is progressing well and if there's any pivot required in terms of delivery. Multiple deliverables could be completed within a quarter, or one deliverable can go across multiple quarters. The quarterly report is a prerequisite of getting your claims approved and for you to get your funding. So quite important. In terms of timeline, the quarterly report is due after 30 days of your quarter end date. So, and then 45 days for it to be used as a supporting document for your claim. So it's worthwhile to calculate your quarter ends. We're recommending taking the last day of the quarter month to be your quarter end. For example, if your project started on May 15th, we consider August 30th as your first quarter end. If you're unsure about your quarter dates, speak to your program associate. That's the Supercluster person who helped you throughout your contracting, and or myself, I could help as well to figure out those dates with you. And I just want to highlight that you would not be required to start the report from scratch. Your program associate or myself will get the report to you, and all you need to do is to update it. And my email will be provided later on in the presentation. Also, I want to highlight that the quarterly report is at a project level, meaning it needs input from all the consortium members. So what is a quarterly report? So the quarterly report is for the program team, the Supercluster program team, to see how the project is forecasted in terms of work completion and financials. We appreciate that these COVID projects are innovative R&D projects that do not always follow what's outlined in the MPA. So it allows us to see the actual spending and progress on the project. Also allows the tracking of outcomes and impacts that the project, tracking the outcomes and impact that the project intends to have. It also authorizes finance to release funds and our communication teams to support releases, and ISED to use it for their communication and internal reporting. It is also part of your project record, which is subject to audit. So it should be maintained for at least 2 years after the completion of the project. So how do you submit a quarterly report? Again, our program team, so either your program associate or myself, will prepare and your first quarterly report based on the MPA, and we'll send that email that to you to update. The PM of your project will work with the consortium to collect and consolidate information for update. And the PM will finalize the report and submit back to the Supercluster programs team. And we will do a review process and approve the quarterly report for it to be used as a supporting document to authorize the payment of your claims. So in the meantime, while you're collecting information and working on the updates, we are here to support, answer any questions you have. So we will not leave you twisting in the winds. So that's like a high-level overview of the quarterly report. Now I'm going to jump into the actual template. Bear with me for a second here. So, Annika, I just want to confirm that if people are seeing the template right now.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe could you just zoom in a little bit more? Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so this is our quarterly report template. This is what it looks like. It consists of 7 tabs, and 6 of them are input tabs, and The one here is a reporting tab, which requires no input. So our suggestion is that you work from the left to right. So starting from tab A, project info, and finish with tab E, project metrics. And because each tab is providing information to the one to the right. And only white cells in this template requires input, and then the blue ones are all locked. So first we have the instruction tab. I know almost no one reads instructions, but you may find this one useful as it provides definition of terminologies and tips for how to complete each session properly, which may save you a few emails back and forth. So tab A, project info. These information are going to be pre-populated for you based on the MPA. What we want you to do here is just to go through the all the sessions here and validate, like review and validate all these information here, and if things have changed since the MPA, so make updates. So tab B is delivery plan. This worksheet asks for progress on each of the major deliverables as outlined in your MPA. The major deliverables, so what we're looking for here for the major deliverables are the descriptions that were completed for each of the deliverable and during this quarter that you're reporting on, and status, whether you're completed, on time, or delayed, not started. We're also looking for acceptance criteria and accepting authority. So in terms of acceptance criteria, we recommend you, before you start a deliverable, think of what are the outputs that will come out of the deliverable, and who will be signing off on it. And that it could be a person's name or a title of the person who will sign off on the particular deliverable. We're also asked you to put into the percentage complete for each deliverable under each quarter. And if your percentage completed is different from, if there's a variance between the actual percentage complete versus what was baseline in the MPA, it will be highlighted. And if it's highlighted, if you could provide under comments field some context for us to understand about that variance. So next worksheet is the delivery variance sheet. This will really help us to understand the impact of the delay, whether it's on a critical path that would affect the overall delivery of the project, and also to flag any risk and issues that are associated with the delay. And when you fill out this risk and issue log, just make sure the information here is digestible for parties that are outside of your project. For example, I said. So stay high level and try to use everyday language. Tab C is costs and payments. This is the financial overview of your projects in terms of project cost and funding. So in the first table C1, we want you to pay, this is the eligible costs for Supercluster funding breaking down by each member of the consortium. And please pay special attention to the variance here. And the variance tolerance is 10%. So if the variance is greater than 10%, we'll work with you for resubmission and get a fuller understanding of that variance. Table 2 are other costs that's not covered by Supercluster, whether it's in-kind donation or third-party contribution, or an ineligible cost such as foreign cost or equipment purchases. That give us a full picture of the project cost, whether it's under whether is eligible or ineligible for Supercluster funding. And for all the COVID projects, all the funding will go directly to the project lead. That's what Table C3 outlines. It's showing, and then Table C4 shows how these how the Supercluster funding gets propagated to each of the consortium member from the project lead. If there's any Microsoft Azure or grant that's being distributed to the program project consortium members, that's where you state it in this table C4. And the last two tables, C5 and C6, are pre-populated or calculated tables, so no input is required here. It shows what each consortium member are co-invest. The total project cost for each consortium member, and also what each consortium member is co-investing to the project. So tab D, cost by category, is eligible cost breaking down by each category for each consortium member. What I want to highlight here is that the total under difference here, which is calculated, the total should be always be 0 because this total should match the table C1 under tab C. So the total should match the total here. Last but not least is the project metrics table. So this worksheet collects key project metrics information for reporting to ISED and for Supercluster to prepare public announcement to promote your project. So use this worksheet as an opportunity to show off the incredible work you and your team are doing. So most of these fields are pre-populated for you based on, again, the MPA, and we're just looking for updated information as the project progresses. There are a few things here I want to highlight. First is member activities on the project. So what we're asking here is to a bit more detail on what each consortium member is doing for the project. And commercial outputs, list any goods, services, data sets, platforms, products that come out of the project, and whether they're new or it's improvement on an existing. And also, where are they at? Are they to be delivered, or are they already completed and commercialized? Under project activity benefits, here we're asking how the project would benefit the greater community as a whole, whether it reduces environmental impacts or how it benefits Canadians as a whole. And we're looking for more specific quantitative numbers for what jobs that would be, number of jobs that would be created, maintained, or rehired. So why it's breakdown to 3 categories, because given the challenges that businesses are facing due to COVID, the project may allow organizations to keep certain jobs or rehire employees who have been let go due to COVID. Also, we want to recognize that we're bringing underrepresented groups into the fold of technology innovation. Under IP strategy, these are the IPs that listed in the IP portion section of your MPA. But I know a lot of the IPs are grouped together, not by protection type, but rather by IP owner. So for the ones that are grouped, we have will be listed as TBD, and we appreciate it if you could break them into each individual protection types, whether it's copyright, patent, or trade secrets, or other. And we also want to know if there's new international opportunities that's associated with the project, and also how is the project tracking towards its target for each of the planned impact as defined in the MPA. So like I've mentioned before, the last tab is the reporting tab, which provides you 3 different types of reporting and to help you to see the project health from different perspectives. So before I pass it on to my colleague Wade to go over the claim portion of the claim process, I want to pause here and see if there's any questions on the quarterly report and whether they're the process or the template.
So there was a question about, does the quarterly report affect draws or pre-funding?
Wade, are you comfortable taking that one? Is how it's that I assume is the advanced funding that's being asked here.
Sure, I can try to answer that question. So correct me if I'm misinterpreting the question, but yes, we do look at the quarterly report when we review any advance requests. So typically we do expect there can sometimes be a difference between what is submitted in the quarterly report versus an advance or a claim. And we just look for variances. So if we know there's a big variance between what you've claimed and the quarterly report, say more than 5% or 10%, then we might go back and ask some questions on it. But otherwise, if they're pretty close, they're fine to be interlinked together.
Okay, thanks, Wade. Just to confirm, Richard, does that answer your question?
Yeah, what I was wondering was every 3 months we get pre-funding for the project. If this is if we do the quarterly report after 3 months, do we have to wait like 45 days after to get the next tranche of pre-funding?
If by pre-funding you mean the claims you put in to get your funding.
No, I mean there's a pre-funding amount that we get because we were incurring costs that we probably couldn't incur with this project.
So probably in advance. So I'm guessing you're getting advance, and we're happy to take this offline in case something's amiss here. But when you request your advance, we do need, for us to give you the next advance, we need to make sure the previous advance has been reconciled. So you'll need to submit a claim advance reconciliation, matching the costs that we advanced you for. And then also we will check the quarterly report to see if there's been any adjustments to your forecasted expenses for the rest of the life of the project. A typical example is what happens if you have spent more than what is advanced to you, which can very easily happen. We would just need to check that quarterly report to see that if the rest of the milestones of the project have been adjusted considering that increase in expenses.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Wade. We have a question.
Sorry, I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Specifically, if one of our partners haven't submitted their costs, and so their costs are actually going to come in Q2, even though they're a large portion of our Q1 budget, how does that, I mean, the cost is still expected to be on track. It's just going to come out slightly later, and all other costs are still forecasted to be the same. How does that affect the reconciliation process and the advancement of the next quarter's funding?
I can take this one, Linda. Great question. So my understanding is that for the COVID projects, it's going to be the lead that's going to submit each claim. So if one particular member have a delay in submitting their claim, it's for the consortium to decide whether they submit the claims to the lead now and then reconcile the delayed members' claims in a future milestone period or quarter period. That's really up to the consortium's decision of when to do that. But either way, we do need to have a reconciliation before we do any future advances.
Okay, so there is the possibility then to say the money's already been advanced, but is not expected to be paid until the following quarter, but it doesn't affect the following quarter's cash flows either.
Yeah,
outside of that one change.
Yeah, and we'll work together with you on that, and that's what the projects team will make sure. And that kind of adjustment is precisely what the quarter report that Linda's showing you is supposed to cover, so we can get across the line in that way.
Thanks, that's perfect.
Sure.
There was a question just on the form specifically to confirm, are we to review and edit, and we are to review and edit any white cell even if there is already a value placed in for our project?
Yes, so the white cells again will be pre-populated by either your program associate or by myself based on the MPA numbers. But when you hit the quarterly quarter, your first quarter, for example, a lot of these numbers change as we all know things don't always go with plan. So we're looking for, the report we'll be sending you is your baseline out of the MPA, and we're looking for the update with your actuals, whether it's the percentage complete or any project spending. So the short answer is yes, any white cells for you to review and update to with the actuals for the quarter. Did that answer your question? I'm not sure who was asking.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Eli was wondering when we can expect these reports.
So you will be getting these reports right before you reach your first quarter. So as of today, we'll send out the baseline reports for project who hit their first quarter on July 30th, and a majority of them, for a majority of the project who hit their first quarter in August 30th. If there's a delay on our ends, because we're a little bit behind schedule, we'll give you an extension on your 30 days. So it'll be 30 days upon receiving the baseline report from us if we are getting them to you a bit late.
Understood. Thank you very much.
So do we have any final questions just on the quarterly reporting? If anyone has any other questions they think of later on, feel free to put it in the chat, and Linda will also be available to answer any questions via email following the presentation. So we'll just move on to Wade's portion on the claims process.
Sure. Thanks for that, Annika and Linda. Hi, everyone. To introduce myself, I work in the finance and accounting team as the Director of Finance at Digital Supercluster. Also online from the finance team is Chris Doody, who is our financial analyst and is responsible for reviewing and processing all of your project claims. So before we get going, I just want to say, as part of the finance team, we are really proud to work with all of you. And I hope you see us as a supporting extension of the projects team. Our team is excited to be at a stage where we can start processing your project claims, and do hope to make claims a seamless process for you. It might seem a little bit complicated and heavy in the beginning, but it's designed in a way that within a few minutes, it should be pretty straightforward for you. So today we'll give you a high-level overview of what is the project claim and to give you a sneak peek into the claims template itself. So the very first slide, so we'll go there is what are project claims? So Digital Supercluster co-invests on eligible project expenses using the co-investment rate set in the MPA, the Master Project Agreement. And the project claim process facilitates the reimbursement of your incurred project-related expenses. So where is the claim form template and the claim-related documents? So we have tried to create a one-stop shop for all claim-related documents within the SharePoint website. To get access to the SharePoint website, please contact your Digital Supercluster project lead and provide him or her with your full name, title, and email address, plus the same information for other people that you want to have access to your folders, your claim folders. Within SharePoint, you'll be able to download all claim-related templates and guides, and also upload all your claim documents. Note that we take confidentiality very seriously at the Digital Supercluster, and only you and your approved staff will have access to your project folder. Note also, even at Digital Supercluster, only the finance team has access to your claim folders. So this is something we take pretty strictly. Something as simple as your banking information. We don't accept any banking information over emails. It has to be through your claim SharePoint site. And that's just an extra precaution to protect you and I guess us as well through the whole process. So next question, when do I submit a claim? So at earliest, a submission claim can be at quarter end. However, payment will only be processed following the submission and acceptance of the quarterly report. And again, we don't have a strict 30 days. It has to be submitted at the approval of the quarterly report. It's really up to your consortium when you decide to get that co-investment funds from Supercluster. All right, so now we've kind of done a quick high-level view. Let's just go through a quick process of how we look through claims. So first, you need to request access to the claim SharePoint website or portal. Afterwards, you'll receive an access confirmation email from Digital Supercluster, which will include a link to your project claim folders. In a few minutes, I'll give you a quick view of what the SharePoint site looks like. Until we get there, so next, you'll upload your claim and supporting documents to SharePoint. So the supporting documents is listed in the co-investment guidelines. We, of course, as staff will help support you, give you further information if you need and what needs to be given. From a high level, I can tell you that something like wages, we do require signed timesheets. For other expenses, any expenses over $500, we do need to see the invoice or receipt. Next, as a best practice, after you have, no, sorry, previous, yeah. As a best practice, after you have made this upload of your claim documents to the SharePoint site, please send an email to Digital Supercluster updating us of when the files and where you've saved the files in the SharePoint site. This is just to make sure that there's no uploads slip through the cracks of our review. Next step, during the claim review, we will contact you if we need any clarifications on your claim documents. So if there's any information that's missing, something we're not sure of, we'll contact you directly and really do work hand in hand with you to try get your claims approved and across the line. Once all has been reviewed and clarified, we will approve your claim. And then finally, with the happy dollar sign at the very end, payment will be processed to your account. Next slide. So we talked about very first step of getting access to your SharePoint site. So what I want to quickly do is give you a quick review of SharePoint. So first, once you get access to SharePoint, you'll go into the SharePoint Claims portal, and you'll notice that there are two folders available there. One is the templates and guides, where you will find all your supporting material, such as templates to fill in your banking information, information on discounted cash costs, your claims Excel form, and I'll give you a sneak peek into that folder in a bit. And then the second folder is your COVID-19 project. So you should find your COVID-19 project name. And this should be the only place where you'll be able to upload your claim information. So now that we've talked about those two folders, I'm going to give you a quick peek into what's inside the templates and guides. So next slide. All right, so you'll find inside the templates and guides folder, there's a number of documents which we have available to you. Note that we do try keep these, we might add more documents to this, depending on if we find a need to support you in any other way. We do update some of the documents, so it's always good before you fill in any forms, just to check in case there's an updated version or template. So the most important document you'll see in this list is highlighted in the big red box, so the DTS project expense claim form. So again, as a best practice, before you start filling in the claim form, just check in case there's an updated version. Generally speaking, we will accept older versions. It's just nice to have the new version because sometimes we found a way to make the claims process easier for you. If we find an error in any calculations, you've got that there. So that's the claim form. So quickly, I'm going to go through some of the other documents that you have available. First is the co-investment funds transfer information form. So this you'll need to fill in to get, you put your banking information in there. So note that, we want to pay you, but we need your updated banking information to do so. Next is the Digital Supercluster Co-Investment Claim Guide. So if you have any questions on what classifies as an eligible or ineligible expense, just check the claim guide. Next is a policy and guidelines on project advances. So an earlier question came in, how do I request an advance for my co-investment? There's a really good policy and guidelines to help you with that. And it gives you a quick template on what needs to be provided to Supercluster to request that advance. Skipping past the claim form, because we just went through that. I've got the quarterly report. So that's what my colleague Linda just showed you. After that, you've got the capital expenditures approval template form. So any capital expenditures greater than $1 million does require pre-approval from Supercluster and our funders. So you just need to fill in that form to get that request and approval done. And again, we will work with you to try make this approval as strong as possible. Same thing goes for the next document on foreign costs. So besides there's 3 or 4 items which don't need pre-approval from Supercluster and our funders, most foreign costs do require approval, and this form provides a template for that. The very last one is a template on wage timesheets. So this is just a supporting document. So as I mentioned earlier, when you do your wage claims, we do require a timesheet that is signed by an officer at your company. Some companies have already a formalized timesheet that they will utilize, and as long as you sign it, we'll accept that, of course. Some companies don't. So to help you with that and provide you some kind of material and guidance, this is what this template will give you. So I tried to do that pretty quickly, just kind of noting time. I think the next step for us now is we've done enough teasing of what is the claim process. We're going to go into the claim form itself. So while I jump to the Excel sheet, we can pause here for some questions.
So we had a question from Martha asking if you can send on the claims criteria or where that can be found for them to refer back to.
You say claims criteria. Could that person just reiterate what they mean by claims criteria?
Yes, you mentioned the timesheets. Just if all of this, of what's required for the claims, the supporting documentation for the relevant claims. For example, you said some expenses under $500 don't need receipts, supporting receipts, I think. And then obviously the timesheets, things like that. If you can, is that documented anywhere on the SharePoint site so I can send a link to my consortium members in relation to that? That would be helpful.
Sure, that should be in the co-investment guidelines.
Fantastic.
Check that document in SharePoint. It should be able to give that to you.
And is there only a SharePoint access in relation to COVID projects or other Supercluster projects as well? I know this process for COVID is different.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so we use SharePoint for all our claims and advances. So there is a different folder. If you have a project within the Technology Leadership Program, there will be one more folder that you'll see that you have access to. There is a slightly different co-investment guidelines for our other programs, just because COVID.
Yeah, I understand. It was just as an aside, if there was another SharePoint, I can talk to Linda about that offline, but just when I saw this SharePoint site, yeah, I didn't know there was another one as well for other projects.
Yeah, it's the same portal. You get the same link, so you'll see the same folder if you have something else.
Okay, fantastic.
Sure. So Linda, I think I just need to steal the screen from you.
We just had a question from Abigail. If all documentation is in order, what is the turnaround time between submission and claim approval?
Sure, great question. So the turnaround time depends on a couple of factors. Once you submit your claim, Supercluster does commit within 2 to 3 weeks, we will review your claim. We've shown right now, we're averaging about 2 weeks, 14 days, but we do give that extra week as a buffer. After that, if there's any issues, we'll obviously go backwards and forwards with you to get that solved. If there's no issues, we should then be able to approve your, it takes about a week for us to get the approvals complete on our side. Then we go for payment. Payment, as part of the MPA, we do say that payment can take up to 45 days. We find that's pretty long. We right now average, I think, within a week of getting the payment post-approval. So an overall summary, it can take 3 to 4 weeks from full review to approval to payment at you. But again, that depends if there's any complications in your claim form.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
We had another question asking if the attested to or signed by, is it by the lead company or each company?
The attestation needs to be signed by the lead.
Okay. Thank you. And finally, can you please clarify if the claims need to match payroll exactly or if salary rate can be used per employee?
So a couple of quick, it needs to be your actual expenses. So trying to answer this question, for example, if you have an annual salary, so some people are working full-time, so they don't have an hourly rate. What we find many companies do is they take their annual salary divided by a common number is 1,840 hours per year, and that'll give you the hourly rate for the employee. What I would suggest is in the claim form, you just give a mention of what is the annual salary divided by, what is that number of hours per year that you've used in your calculation, and you just put in the hourly rate and the number of worked hours on this particular project in the claim form. So I hope that answers the question.
It does, thank you.
Sure. I can't see, can everyone see, Annika, can you confirm that everyone can see the Excel?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, and I just try to zoom in to make it a bit easier. All right, so now we've talked all about claims, and I know many people get super excited when you talk about a big Excel form. So just so you know that this claim template is a live document in the sense that we continuously try to find ways to improve it. So while we're showing you this now, and we'll keep pretty high level, this is not a once-off meeting with you. If you have any questions in the claim form, please contact us and we're happy to go through it again with you. And while you're doing it, if you have any suggestions on improving the claim form, if you find particular areas that you're struggling with, just let us know and we're happy to try make this a better experience for each of the consortiums. So that being said, let's dive straight into it. And for the essence of time, I'm going to keep pretty high here and not go into too much detail. So in the claim form, there are 11 tabs that are available to use. The very first one being the instructions tab. So just big key rule here is everything in white, you generally can fill in and adjust throughout the whole claim form. Anything in blue should be hard coded and you won't be able to adjust. That's just because we have some coding in there. We have some controls, so we try to avoid anyone using those blue cells. Right in the very beginning in the instructions, you'll see we've created a quick checklist. These are checklists that we just, it's good for you to just mark off before you submit, just as you submit a claim to us, just to make sure you have everything. So just very quickly, the very first one we ask, I have read the co-investment guidelines. So it's good then to know what you need to give in supporting documentation. I have populated the claim template with all project related expenses. We do want to give our co-investment to you and as much as possible. So make sure you've got all your expenses in there so we can get that those funds to you. Next is all foreign costs are eligible expenses or have been pre-approved for co-investment. So again, if it hasn't been pre-approved, you've got that form in the SharePoint site. And we do mention in the SharePoint site and the co-investment guidelines and actually in the foreign cost form, which foreign cost expenses are eligible for co-investment and you don't need pre-approval. Something like travel for conferences that are project related, import of certain equipment and so on. Next is any capital expenditures over $1 million have been pre-approved. This is really important. So make sure that if you do have capital items that are over $1 million, just to speak to Supercluster about it. Next is all expense supporting documents have been uploaded to SharePoint in the claims website. Digital Supercluster has my latest banking information. Again, we want to get the money to you, and if you don't have the bank information, we don't know who to send the money to. And last is I have signed the project claim attestation. So it's just gone. That'll be 100%. So that there is just the very last tab, which you'd need to go into, is the project attestation. Really important to make sure, and I'll show you in a sec, make sure that you have someone, an officer sign that attestation. And we basically use that as saying that like you as a ultimate recipient of our funds confirm that everything you've submitted to us is correct and there's no misleading information. So that's just the high level instructions. So we'll quickly look into, let me make this a bit bigger for everyone. We'll go into the very first main tab where you fill things in, and that's the summary tab. The summary tab has got two sections, section 1A, section 1B. You only really need to fill in section 1A. Section 1B will be automatically populated based on the other tabs that you fill in. This is really high level information. We just put your name, the project this relates to, membership type. So if you're industry, post-secondary, another government organization. There's two incredibly important sections to fill in. One is form type. So there's two types of so again, we've tried to create a one form for everything without you guys having to worry about, do I need another document for this claim and this, an advanced reconciliation, I need a document, another one. We want to make this a one-stop shop for you. So from form type, you can select project claim or an advanced reconciliation. Depending on what you pick, this form will be adjusted slightly to make it relevant. So if it's an advanced reconciliation, you'll notice there's a bottom section here that mentions your original advance against how much you're claiming for. But for now, we're going to start just for project claim. So you'll note that as a project claim, you don't have to fill in this row 14 because that's got to do with advances. Next, so they got the milestone quarter. So you just mentioned what milestone or quarter number this refers to. Supercluster co-investment, that's the second most important part. So in your MPA, it does have a co-investment percentage. Really important to make sure that percentage matches your MPA. Then here we go, maximum total Supercluster co-investment funds, just an idea of what is the total amount that's been given to you. Reconciliation period, very important. So when is what months does this claim kind of include? Then just moving down, so again, this is a section that is automatically populated based on what you fill in. The most important numbers that will be important for you is the bottom right, which is the total amount of Supercluster co-investment. So when you fill in information, it'll give you total expenses. Based on the co-investment rate that you put in here, it will work out how much Supercluster co-investment your claim has earned. So we try to keep this pretty automated for you. Next one is wages. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Just some best practice items for you to be aware of. One is employee name. Please make sure that your employee name is in full. and matches the supporting document. I cannot emphasize enough. We need to see the same name here as it would be in your timesheet. Really important. Here we got job description. What's important here is we don't want to see just a title of the person. We want to see what is the title that it's related to the specific project. Yeah, that's important there. Second is we got 2 sections for wage rates. So it can happen that one of your staff during the this claim period had a promotion. Good for them. And they're going to increase in salary rate. When that happens, there's a different hourly rate that needs to be assigned there. This allows you to do a double, to split those hourly rate and also the number of hours at that rate. Really important is we have a separate section for benefits. So you have wages, which will be automatically calculated based on these sections here. Benefits is a separated item that we do need to kind of check on. That'll give you a total amount. The next one is just description of work performed, just to make sure that's project related. And then title of supporting documents. This here is kind of a best practice item throughout the entire claim document. And you'll see this column in all of the other tabs. To make it easier for us and to really review your claim quickly, it's good to just mention what is the title that's referencing this particular expense. It just helps us to find what you are talking about and make sure we can do that, the matching between the supporting documents and the claim. So wages is normally the heavier one for many companies. So I gave through a little more details here. I'm going to try go a little bit lighter than on the rest of the tabs. So going to the next tab, the subcontractors. So this is pretty straightforward. If you have any subcontractors, you get a section here for the name, whether it's a subsidiary of yours or not. Again, we don't really want, it should not be a subsidiary, but we just need that confirmation. Activity, project related invoices. 2 things I just want to highlight here is one is we do need you to separate taxes. Again, taxes are not eligible for co-investment. So we do require that separation. And next is obviously, again, same in the previous tab, is the title of supporting documents. So let us know what invoice we should be looking at to match to that expense. I'll move quickly to the next one, travel. So just so you know, that travel is, it seems pretty straightforward, but especially with our funders, it's one area that they do go into pretty big details in their review. So try and make sure that you spend some time on the travel expenses to make sure that they're accurate. We do have to follow the Canada National Joint Travel Directive for all expenses. In the National Joint Travel Directive, which you can find online, it does mention which expenses are eligible for co-investment. Classic thing is in flights. It tells us that only economy flights, not business class, is eligible for co-investment. This guide tells you how much you can claim per meal, per person on a specific day. So really check that guide to make sure that you're doing things correctly. And again, here you'll notice that we do separate taxes, again, not eligible for co-investment. And what happens if you do going to a international conference in a different country? We do allow for you guys to give the foreign currency that you're referring to and the rate that you assumed. For the rate, we kind of use reasonableness. So you can kind of give an overview of what you think is reasonable in a co-investment rate. And we do ask you to try and make sure it matches your actual expenses in your with expenses in your bank. And I think for travel, that's pretty much it. We'll move to other eligible costs. So this is pretty, again, straightforward. Key things to bring up. Again, we do need you to separate your costs, especially for items. As soon as we see over $500, we need to check that, right? Because that needs to have a supporting document. So clearly space it out. You'll notice that in column D, you can mention what type of other expenses it is. You've got equipment, materials, dissemination costs, and other capital expenditures, other direct costs. So we do try to simplify that for you. And again, we separate taxes from the overall invoiced amount. And again, especially for other expenses, because this normally gets filled quite a lot, make sure you just mention what is the name of the supporting document that this is in relation to. Next is discounted cash costs. So this one depending on which project you're involved in, sometimes you have, sometimes you don't have discounted cash costs. In this form, I'm just going to go over it very lightly. We do ask you to obviously give the title of it, the proof, what are you using to establish that fair market value, which we always talk about, the period of it, description of the DCC contribution. We talk about how much is in the invoice itself, tax excluded, and obviously then tax included the total, because we need to basically match, we need to see a matching principle between your supporting documents, establishing the fair market value, and what you see in the claim form. And the last one, which is obviously the most important one to us, is how have you justified that fair market value? So I think in the co-investment guidelines, we give ways to establish that fair market value, and we're happy to work with you as well in case you have any questions on that. And it's definitely one area that we work very closely with consortiums on. Next is the other government funding expenses. So, you know, we need to check just in case you're getting additional government funds for this project, something like MyTax. If you're getting MyTax funds, that's fantastic, but obviously we can't co-invest on those MyTax items, and we need to make sure that government funds does not go over a 50% co-investment rate on the on projects. So we just need you guys to clarify this. Next is unfunded eligible costs. So if you have any items which are not seeking co-investment, we still need to see a claim for it. The nice thing about this one, if you have an unfunded eligible cost, is you basically just need to describe it and give a total amount. We don't require supporting documents yet. Later, of course, if we do have to do an audit, we will require those some kind of invoices and proof of this expense. But for general claims, we don't require supporting documents. So this makes it much easier for you. Next is 9, non-industry. It's not this tab is not really too much COVID related, but there are some consortiums that would use this tab. It's if you have someone like a non-industry member, such as a post-secondary institution, such as UBC, that they have costs which are not seeking co-investment, which they would like to spell out and be recognized in the project expense. This allows you to get there. And again, the last one, the attestation, really, really important section of this document, is you'll notice that everything here is blue. So it'll be automatically populated based on what you've given before. And if you look at section 1A and section 1B, it's almost exactly the same as the summary tab. So it's pretty clean and straightforward. We didn't want to complicate it for you. What makes it unique though, is underneath it, there's a section where you have to give your assign attestation. We spelled this out to you to make it pretty clear. It just confirms that everything that you've given to us as a claim is true and correct, and there's no misleading information. And the person signing this form needs to be an officer and someone that is approved to sign on project claims. So that is a very brief overview of the claim process and the claim forms. I try to keep it light. I know this can look very heavy in the beginning, but this is a pretty straightforward document, and we're happy to help you if you need any more information on this. So on that note, I think, Linda, you can steal the screen from me again, and we can take some more questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wade, for that in-depth overview. Sorry, I don't know your full, but DCJ, you had a couple questions. Do you want to just unmute your line and maybe just make sure we cover everything for you?
Sure, thank you very much. Okay, Wade, so the first one is, in my SharePoint, the the highest version that I see for the DTS project expense claim template is 2020.03. I see that you're using 04. Would we be able to get a copy of that, please?
It should be the one that you have in your SharePoint site is the most updated. So that, I think I could have shown you the technology leadership tab there.
Because the one that is on there does not show the checklist in the instructions tab. But you had the checklist on yours.
Yeah, then there must be an updated version, and sure, I'll go ahead and check that, but it should be in there.
Oh, great, thank you so much. Okay, and then on the wages page, My understanding is that, we attest to the hours. We don't have a timekeeping system. What sort of timesheets are required?
That's a good question. So, and just to clarify, I've gone to the SharePoint site. You're right, it's 03. So I'll send the 04 version
Oh, great.
after this. And it's just because we did an 04 version very recently, just from lessons learned from other projects. So with regards to your question on timesheets, so if you go into the SharePoint folder, you'll see that there is a template on how to submit a timesheet. So for many consortiums, as mentioned, your employees have an annual salary. You don't go by hours. However, the way that our funders from the government have done their processes, they do need a rate per employee, just because there's some controls and restrictions on what they can co-invest on. So what we've told other people is that take your annual salary, divide it by, and I'm sure your accounting department will have a rough number where you can establish a rough number. Some companies use 1,800 hours per year. Other ones use 1920. So and you can mention that number count in your claim form, just as a supporting number, to get you your hourly rate. Once you've got your hourly rate, you can put that into the form. So the X being the hourly rate, Y being the number of hours that needed. You can solve Y by looking how much the actual salaries are and just work it backwards. So we just need to make sure that the total that you're claiming is your actual expense, and you can manipulate the number of hours to get that to match.
So to paraphrase, essentially just an explanation of the hourly rate justified by salary. Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
And the template,
that's all I have.
Sure. And the template I give you does kind of spell that out and how to give the timesheet, the number of worked hours. Just very important there. Make sure you have someone sign that timesheet. You have an officer sign that timesheet.
Okay. So then again, is this the project lead or is this each portfolio company? So I'm going to be the officer putting this together for, this is Project Looking Glass, King's Distributed Systems. What I've been doing is I've been asking the companies to have somebody attest to their hours and their wages, but I don't have a way of independently auditing that.
Oh, completely agree. That should be them. If they're the ones that are confirming the how much their staff has worked on the project. So I would suggest get them to sign the attestation.
Okay.
And when you give it to Supercluster, you just kind of put them together and give it to us.
Okay. Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Wade. Laura M., do you want to just unmute your line quickly?
Yeah, sure. I was just wondering on the wage tab that you've shown, how are the benefits calculated, and should we also include employer taxes in the rate?
Sure. So benefits needs to be statutory benefits only. So it cannot be bonuses and things of that nature. As a rough rule of thumb, at Supercluster, we say 3%. Every employee is slightly different. So for example, if their salary rate is very high, you'll notice that the benefits percentage, the statutory benefits percentage is a little bit lower. If the salary is lower, the statutory benefits percentage is slightly higher. So taking an average, we've seen 3% of your wages would classify as a benefits expense.
Okay, thank you.
And we have a question from Alyssa at Altus Labs. Do you want to unmute your line?
Yeah, so my question is that most of our employees aren't 100% on this project, especially our core researchers. And so we have, for instance, I have one person that is spending 30% on an IRAP project. Maybe I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but say, another 30% on digital supercluster, and then the rest of the time they're working on non-funded R&D projects. So do I have to disclose that 30% funding into the DSC as well?
No, yeah, it's a good point. No, we only care about project-related expenses. So if someone's time is spent on a different program, different project, non-Supercluster related, we don't need to put that in any of the claim information.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
All right, do we have any final questions for Wade and Linda? If not, again, their contact information will be provided in the follow-up. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to them directly. So just to quickly summarize, we wanted to reiterate 3 key takeaways. The first being that collaboration is a critical factor in your project success. Timely and accurate quarterly reporting enables the realization of impactful project outcomes. And finally, the Supercluster team is here to support you and your project team. We really are an extension of your team and are an available resource to help guide and support your project success. So I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to join today's workshop, and to the Supercluster team, Linda, Wade, and Chris, for leading the presentation. We hope that you found this session informative and that this serves as an introductory guide as you work through the reporting and claims process. As you'll see on the screen, we have some resources which will all be sent out in the follow-up along with this recording for your reference. If you have any follow-up questions, please contact info@digitalsupercluster or reach out to Linda, Wade, or Chris directly, and we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. We ended a few minutes early, so you'll get a bit of your morning back, but we hope you have a great rest of the week ahead. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.